An ethical code would be a code that laid down a series of behaviors that are expressive of truth or reality, that show people how to behave in line with, or in a way that is consistent with, the fact that everyone shares their being, that all ethics can be boiled down to that single fact. Ethical behavior is behavior that is consistent with the fact that we all share our being. This is why St. Augustine, when asked about these matters, ethics and morals, he simply said, love and do whatever you want. He meant simply realize that you are one with everything and everyone, and as long as your behavior is consistent with that understanding, you don't need any moral code, that everything you do will be consistent with that understanding. The reason why we need 10 commandments or a moral code is for those of us that do not yet feel this, we are told how to behave in a way that is consistent with this understanding until we realize it for ourselves. So let's go back to David and the symphony. So the violinist is, you say in your analogy, the violinist is one who is aware of that she shares her reality with everyone. And the clarinetist does not yet realize this. He still believes and feels that he is a temporary finite self. However, I would suggest that many artists and many musicians, when they are in their studios or when they are performing in their quartets or their bands or their orchestras, that they are, at least for the duration, for the period of time in which they are performing their art, they transcend their limitations as a person, and they perform in a way that is expressive of truth or reality. When they then go back to their everyday lives, they revert to believing and feeling that they are a separate self or an ego. But many people, and in fact, this is why for many artists, that their art is a kind of, it's not a compulsion. It's something that they can't not do, that they know that when they are in their studios or performing in their orchestras or band, they are in touch with something that they know is so utterly alive and true. And in that moment, they do transcend the sense of separation. They are expressing the truth, reality, love. So it's not black and white. It's not either you've recognized yourself, your true nature, and everything you do expresses that, or you haven't yet. There is a spectrum.
Yes. Beautiful. Yes.
And that is not only true, it's not only true of artists, it's true of everybody.
Yes, exactly. In that sense, all 8 billion are artists, in that sense.
Yes, everybody, all 8 billion of us know the experience of love. In other words, everybody has tasted the fact that we share our being, and everybody has had the experience of behaving and relating in a way that is consistent with that understanding. For most people, it's only that behavior is only directed towards a few people in their circle, their friends or their family.
Yes.
But nevertheless, they've still understood and felt what it is to share our being, even if that is not their consistent experience.
And Rupert, would you say that we are, over the last several thousand years, if not tens of thousands of years, that we have been going more and more towards the general the full embodied realization
I
more
hope
and
so.
more of that.
I
Okay.
hope so, Alan.
Okay.
I hope so.
Because that's the general idea of what like in evolution,
Yes.
when people say that word, that's
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
I tend to be optimistic.
Optimistic. Yeah.
Everything ultimately is destined to return to its source. There is nowhere else for it to return to. So ultimately,
Yeah.
everything is
Yes.
destined for its source.
Yeah.
One could argue that there is more violence, more disharmony, more conflict in the world today. I would suggest that the old structures were that in our society were egoic structures. They were structures
Yeah.
in our corporations, in our governments, in our institutions.
Yes.
That they were structures that were based upon an egoic sense of self,
More tyrannical.
a separate self, and that expresses itself in extremes, in tyrannical dictatorships, but also in much smaller ways, in families, in companies, in
Yes.
communities, and the sense of separation can express itself. So I would suggest that the chaos we see in our society today, and the violence, the conflict, I hope, and I believe
Yeah.
that it is the evidence that these structures are falling apart because they're not based in truth or reality.
Yeah.
And although we're witnessing a time of great upheaval, I hope that and I believe that it makes for the possibility that a new order will emerge, one that is based on
Yes.
our shared being. That this
Yes. Yes.
must be that there's the single understanding that
Exactly.
we share our being with everyone and everything must be the foundation of any truly civilized culture. It must be at the origin of a civilized culture.
I love that. I love that. That first principle of recognition of
It's
shared
the first,
being. Yeah.
it's the principle that it should be the fundamental principle of all, but not only of all of us, but because we're speaking of the world, of all politicians.
Yes, exactly.
All politics should be in the
Yes.
service of one idea or one understanding alone, namely everyone and everything. When I say everything, I include everything because I'm not just talking about animals and people. I'm talking about the earth,
Yes.
our
Yes. Yes.
environment, that
Yes.
everyone
Yes.
and everything share their being.
Yeah.
That should be the single guiding principle of all people in general, but politicians
Yes.
in general. That their policies, their individual policies, then in relation to different situations and events, would be the means by which this understanding was then expressed and shared and communicated and implicated in society.
Yes, we have been very obsessed about taking that recognition of shared being and having it deeply embodied at uh, Davos, at the World Economic Forum, in the Global 500 top companies, all the presidents and congresses of the world, in Hollywood, in Silicon Valley, all of these places, especially in people that have so much guiding influence, are the most important, especially to have that recognition of shared being be that
Yeah.
first principle. And when it becomes the first principle, Rupert, it also enables the recognition that my clarinet or violin or saxophone or drums or bass or whatever I'm doing, it must be for the service to other. It must be for augmenting the social fabric, for enabling the basic needs on like a Maslow's hierarchy to be met, so that if air, water, food, energy, education, healthcare, etc., are met, it enables people to have a deeper self-abidance. It enables the inquiry into the true nature of reality, plus it enables them to become an artist in symphony as well. And so that's sort of the general process that at least I see
Yeah.
happening.
One who is one who not only understands but feel that they share their being with everyone and everything. They play in tune in the symphony. And one who does not feel this plays out of tune.
Tune. Out of tune, trying to hoard materialistic possessions and that type of stuff. That versus playing in tune. I like that. I like that as well. That's so excellent.